Hello everyone, my name is Kyle. Welcome to my YouTube channel. The following clip you're about to see is an excerpt from a longer interview that I had with Yuva Gambhir, who's a close friend of mine and is a 23-year-old with Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy. I hope you find the video informative and insightful, and please let me know if there are any suggestions or feedback and if you have any questions. So I hope you enjoy the video, and this will be covering Yuva's gene therapy as well as medical innovations within the muscular dystrophy space. So hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
And then now we'll be going to more like what it's like to live with Duchenne muscular dystrophy and like your experiences with it, as well as, just gene therapy, which is what we've touched on just briefly. So I guess like how did you like what is your diagnosis story? Like how did you learn about this? And what was like the initial reaction to, I guess, being diagnosed with DMD?
Yeah, I mean, so I was born with this basically missing genetic material that encodes for a protein called dystrophin, which is vital to it's in your around your muscle cells. There's a membrane that protects it. So dystrophin, long story short, is vital to making sure that membrane works. And if you when you don't have it, your muscle cell membrane can get damaged, and that causes things to leak out of your muscle cells and also things that you don't want to go in, and your muscle then slowly, the entire muscle weakens over time. So I was born with this, but then of course it gets worse over time, because every time you use your muscles, they slowly get damaged. So like I've been using my muscles for the past 23 years, so they've gotten pretty damaged so far where I use a chair. But so when I was born though, like it wasn't noticeable that, because I haven't you don't move around a lot and there's not that much damage that gets inflicted on your muscles. So it wasn't until I was like actually like 3 years old that my parents like noticed like I was slightly weaker than other people. Like I wasn't as willing to like run and jump. So they I got diet so they took me to the doctor and I got genetic testing. So I was diagnosed with this at the age of 3. So obviously at a 3-year-old, like I don't remember any of that. Like I can't think about any of that. And then 3, like going all the way up to like maybe like up until the age of like 10, um, I knew that something was up. Like I knew that I was weaker, but like I didn't really understand like what I had and what I was dealing with. Not so much because like anyone was hiding anything from me. Like I just didn't really think about it too much. A, because my muscles weren't that weak at that point where it really affected my life, and like B, because I also was just like too young to like really understand. My parents would just tell me like, oh yeah, like you have some issue with your muscles, so just whenever you feel tired, like take it easy. Like there's nothing um you need to like worry about. Obviously, I'm like a little kid, so you don't want me to stress out. But then I think like obviously as I like it becomes obvious to me like, okay, I can't do this stuff. Like I'm trying to play tag with my friends, I can't keep up with them. Then I start like questioning more, like, all right, what actually is going on? Like what's this issue with me? So I think my can't remember like when I had the first conversation, but like it just kind of became known to me like, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. And it wasn't until like one day I started going to this. I like to like do like activities. I went to this one summer camp. I think I was maybe like 12, 13 years old. I went to specialized summer camp for people that have different disabilities. And actually, I had a lot of fun there because like all these things that I found like that were getting harder for me. There was all these adaptations there because it was designed for people who have different muscular dystrophies. So I was able to like do all kinds of things that I hadn't been able to do in a long time, and I really enjoyed that. But then I think like one of the like camp counselors or something was like asking me about my disease, like and this was also prior to like these recent treatments that have come out, and he's like, oh man, like how do you deal with this? Like you're only probably gonna live like another like 10 years or so. Like aren't you like freaking out? Like blah blah blah. Like probably not something you should have been talking to like a 12-year-old about. Then I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, like what? Like I don't have that. Like I don't have Duchenne. Like I just have like weak muscles or whatever. And then I start looking it up and I learn about it, and then I freak out, and like I think that's for a period like maybe 12, 13, 14, like I'm just like super freaked out about my condition. Like I like you look up on the internet, there's all these like scary things. You type in I mean, now if you look up Duchenne muscular dystrophy, hopefully you're seeing more hopeful, positive news. But you type it in, then it's like Duchenne muscular dystrophy is the worst form of muscular, and it still is. It's the worst form of like muscular dystrophy, and life expectancy is like early 20s. And I saw these, and I'm like 12, 13, I see all these like scary pictures of like people like stuck in bed with like tubes and ventilators in them, and like, so I'm obviously like freaking out. But yeah, I think that's where like that was on my mind. But then luckily I was able to, that first set of treatments came out, so that gave me hope. So like I always had this like extra hope in my life, like all right, something's gonna work out. Like there's treatments, and so
What
far
was the treatment? Was it gene therapy or like
yes.
what? Yeah.
So this was prior to the gene therapy. This is a therapy that works kind of at the mRNA level. So essentially what's happening is like if I'm missing the actual like genetic material, then at the second level where basically the mRNA is taking the info from your DNA and like then going to get the protein made. At that second level, there's this type of treatment that works called exon skipping. Um, that works at essentially, like, long story short, at the mRNA level, it gets you to try to make like a partial version of the protein that I'm missing. So that was a big breakthrough in science. And yeah, if you're like into bio and you're watching this, and just look up like ASO or PPMO therapies, it's super interesting. I won't get into like all the bio jargon in case it's like you don't want to know all those facts, but that whole class of treatments came out around that time. So that gave me this hope, like, okay, like there might be all this terrible stuff, but like now all these new things are coming. So who knows? Like by the time, like right now, the life expectancy is like 20 back when I was reading that, but like by the time like I'm in the next 10 years, like things will come out, and things have been coming out. So I've been very lucky that like I'm alive in this period where like all the way up till now, there's literally nothing. And now there's things coming out. And I'm even like more excited for the people who are like just born right now, because I'm not excited for them to have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, but like if you get it now, like it's not as scary as it was.
Hmm.
And so yeah, that's been one thing. And then on top of that, yeah, to live a good life, there's been all this like other technology that's come out now. So the wheelchairs that we use, you can see, so in that picture, there's actually some of my buddies. They also have the same condition as me, Duchenne, and we all have these advanced power wheelchairs now that make life so much more livable, because because they keep you comfortable all day. Like you can tilt, and there's all these like you can tilt your chair back, and it like I also have this like special pressure sensitive, because one thing that sucks about sitting in a wheelchair all day is like your butt just gets so sore. Like just imagine like sitting down like all day in one position,
Yeah.
you can't move. So like I literally have this like new pressure sensitive cushion that senses when there's like too much pressure in one area and like redistributes pressure, and like so there's all these little things like that make comfort of life so much easier. And like so you're in like a comfortable wheelchair, and like being in the US, there's ramps and elevators pretty much everywhere. It's like you can go out, you can do stuff, you can hang out with your friends, and like just in so many other countries still that's not possible. There's just simple things like steps everywhere that like will literally be completely debilitating. So I'm very like fortunate to have this tech, and just be in the US where they value accessibility. And then also like for things like sleep, right? Like it used to be, if you have, because when you have Duchenne, you can't turn at night. You're just literally sitting in one spot in your bed. And that used to be a massive issue for people, because you're not getting good sleep that way. Like your body needs to move, your blood has to be pumping.
Yeah.
You're sitting in one place, you get pressure sores. So now there's literally I have a robotic turning bed that automatically rotates me at night. So like I
How
can,
does that work? Like, does it just like tilt and like
yeah,
you tilt
it
this side and
tilts
it
me
tilts
like,
back?
it kind of like cradles me like a baby, like left and right. It tilts me. It's like simple like tech like this is like, and like think about it, if you're gonna get good sleep, like versus like terrible sleep every night. I mean, that can also add like add 10 more years to your life. Like, so
Yeah.
in terms of tech, there's been a lot, but there's also, I feel like there's been a lot of innovation, but given like what we have now and what we've achieved with science, like I think there's way more innovation that can be made. Like, um, just like when you think about like this accessible tech, and it's happening. We're getting there. We have like people inventing like exoskeletons now. So think about it, if your body's weak, instead of being in a wheelchair, if you have kind of like an Iron Man suit around you where that's doing all the work to help move you, like that's pretty dope to think about. And then also there's wheelchairs now that are actually able to climb steps, go up and down steps. They haven't been approved in the US now, but they're ones that exist like in I think Russia and Switzerland, and they've been approved there by in the US the wheelchairs have to be approved by the FDA because like for safety and like any medical thing has to go through that. But they've been approved in other countries, and it's a matter of time before they get approved here. But yeah, I still think there's so much like innovation that can be made, and the med tech space is such an important space because it's not just people like me who have rare diseases that are using these things. As we now move to a world where people are living longer, like we have way more people are starting to live way longer now, but they as you live longer, there's this period of time where like you have worse health, and like as a older person, like you're probably you might have to rely on a wheelchair and accessibility. So it's an ever expanding like market. So
Yeah.
you're watching this, yeah, and like you're thinking about like you're into like robotics and tech, like med tech is like definitely a place that's an area that's like going to be booming, already booming, and will continue to just grow as people are living longer.
Gotcha. And then I was also wondering, like, can you, I guess, shed some light on like what that photo is there, and maybe talk about
Yeah.
just like who they are, and uh, just anything that you want to share on that.
Yeah, so these are so yeah, actually one very sad, unfortunate thing that I mean I'm saying it kind of now like very robotically, but like it would definitely had a massive devastating impact on me. Is one of my best friends who has this condition, the guy in the middle, you can see him there. He's actually he was a he did comedy. This was actually right after one of his comedy shows. He would go around Boston and like get booked at different comedy clubs. So pretty very funny, very awesome guy. He actually passed away suddenly recently, and that's like it is like kind of one of the scary like realities of this disease. Like sometimes you get I don't think we still don't know exactly like what happened, but he had some other complication, but then because your system is his system was weaker from the Duchenne, both of those together caused him to have a massive health problem all of a sudden. And that is something like that is a scary reality of Duchenne because maybe the disease isn't we've progressed to the point where we've got the disease under control, but when your body's weaker and then you have to deal with another problem all of a sudden, like that can have a detrimental consequence. So yeah, unfortunately, he was one of my very close best friends with DMD. He passed away and is just very difficult for me because I have a lot of buddies that are like not in wheelchairs, but able body that I'm close to and I can share things with. But it's different when someone's like dealing with the same condition as you, and you can like talk to them about things because you know like they're experiencing it as well. And then to the right is also my other equally just as close good friend with muscular dystrophy as well. And dude, this dude is actually insanely cracked. Like he Harvard undergrad, he went to Harvard and then works at Google, worked at SpaceX. I don't even know where else, like some other big name places. And he just pushes himself. He's crazy. He's able to study for long hours and he's just super smart. And despite like all the physical challenges, he's operating at this like crazy high level. And yeah, so he worked at Google for some time. Then he's like he wants to do something else. So he goes to Harvard, he gets into Harvard Law School, completes that. I think right now he just is in the process of finishing his bar and is about to work at a law firm. So yeah, these are two like super ambitious dudes with Duchenne. And it's pretty cool like that we've gotten to the state now because it used to be like, all right, you're around this age, like you're stuck in bed now, like life is about to end. And now we're at a point where it's like, nah, like we have these like conditions, but like at the age of 20, like we can pursue what we want to do in life and like go after our dreams. And that's all because of advances in like medicine. Um, so yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. And then I also wanted to ask, you mentioned that DMD is like genetic. Like, is that due to like a genetic history running in the family, or like how does one, I guess, get born with this? Or is this like a mutation, or what's like the genetic cause of it?
Yeah. So essentially it is a genetic disease. And so if one of your parent if your mom is a carrier of basically if your mom's a carrier basically because she has two of the same chromosome, it doesn't actually appear and then manifest anyway, which is why like women can't get DMD. Like even if they have like the dystrophin protein like missing on one of their like the code for this, I should say, the genetic material for dystrophin missing on one of their X chromosomes, they have two X chromosomes. So that's why it's an X-linked disease. So it only affects males. So my mom actually had it, and I'm not sure if it was passed down to her genetically or if it was just a freak mutation that happened. But then, yeah, my mom had it, and then she passed it down to me. So then that's how I got it genetically. But like again, it only will manifest itself like in a guy because I have an XY chromosome. So obviously, if I have something that's X linked and I'm missing some genetic material there, it's going to manifest itself. Um, but then yeah, then so there's it also can just occur as like a freak mutation, so random mutation. But yet for me, it was inherited X linked.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then I also wanted to learn more about, I guess, gene therapy and like any recent medical innovations. And this was off camera, but you and I were talking about this a month ago, where you started, I guess, receiving gene therapy over winter break. And I wanted to ask you, like, how did you come across this, I guess, treatment, and what was like the process like, and how are you feeling now? And um I guess like what would you say to like anyone that has DMD and is watching this and like might be considering some gene therapy or something novel?
Yeah. Um, yeah, so first I'll just preface it by like talking about gene therapy. I mean, the gene therapy space is huge. And when you think about gene therapy, I think the way I'll describe it is there's kind of two main categories. One is like a type of gene therapy where you're actually editing the genome. When you hear of like CRISPR and gene editing, that's where you're actually going to the DNA and making edits there. And that's has a lot of potential and it can be used for awesome things. That's also very, very risky because obviously if there's some mistake that you make at that level of your DNA, when your cells are replicating, that's the DNA that continues to get replicated. And that's like if you mess up there essentially, like that can have massive like consequences because it can go to the new cells that are generated. And then there's this other notion of gene therapy where you're missing genetic material, you're missing something in your DNA, but what happens is they take essentially there's some extra genetic material that is that you can I'm trying to think of a way to like just explain it simply, but essentially that there's okay, so you can there's missing genetic material in your DNA. So then you can take an extra piece of genetic material to like make up for that missing material and put that into your cell, and your body's able to then recognize like, okay, I'm not able to make the protein like from the DNA essentially, but I see this other genetic material floating around in the nucleus. I can use that to make the protein. And that's actually much safer because let's say that like there's something goes wrong and that man-made piece of genetic material you stick into the nucleus like
Yeah.
it's not working or there's a problem with it. You haven't actually edited the DNA and your cell will just like reject that material and not actually like make a protein out of it. So that type of gene therapy is actually where we've started to have like a lot of success in like making innovations. It's been used to cure a type of blindness. I think they're working on one for people who have sickle cell disease. And right now, I think 5 gene therapies have been approved in the United States that work in this fashion. And this is very like novel stuff. It's like
How
brand,
novel are we talking about? Like within the past
yeah, like this is a
5 years, ten
within the
years?
past 5 years. Yep. It's
Wow.
a whole new type of class of therapies that have entered the market. And right now, yeah, they're primarily being used to target these like rare genetic diseases. But when you think about why it has such a massive potential, like this is kind of the starting point. We're using it to help with these diseases, but then if you think you can use it the potential of like actual enhancements, like human enhancements, and like bringing people to the next level and all kinds of like cool applications with it. When you think about enhancement right now, none of that's been FDA approved, but I don't know if you're watching this and you know about this, there's all these people now who are interested in gene therapy for enhancement. This guy, Brian Johnson, do you know Brian
Oh
Johnson?
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this dude is this crazy billionaire. He does everything possible to try to live as long as possible and maintain the best health. There's this island, I forget where it is, but there's this island off the coast of somewhere in Central America called Prospera, where people are like the restrictions are less. So people are literally like experimenting with gene therapy. So this dude, Brian Johnson, goes to Prospera and he gets this gene therapy. Ends up increasing his like muscle mass by like 14% or something, but like he's literally getting this extra genetic material injected into him that causes his muscle mass to increase. And like in this island Prospera, like they're all these startups like messing around with gene therapy, and like you go and you can sign up at your own risk and get injected with different stuff and see how it affects your body.
Oh.
But obviously in the US it's only like highly regulated FDA things that have been approved. But so recently, yeah, like this treatment called Alavidius has been approved for people with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, where essentially, all right, so I'm missing the genetic material for dystrophin, but there's a man-made little, and it's called a transgene. There's a like essentially a synthetic transgene or synthetic like genomic material that basically, so I got, okay, I'll start from this point. I got this treatment in December, like about 2 months ago now, beginning of December, and it's just a one-time treatment. So I go there, I get an IV placed in me, and it's literally just a treatment that drips in like through an IV. Like imagine someone like getting chemotherapy, like it's like that. I just sit there for, I think it was like 2 hours or so, and it drips into me. And what's happening while this is dripping into my bloodstream is I think about, yeah, approximately 4 trillion viral particles are going into my bloodstream. And like you might think like viral particles, like what,
Viral sounds bad to me.
yeah, like that sounds like bad, but what's going on here is these viral particles, um, they're from an original virus that is detrimental to your muscle cells. Like the virus attacks your muscle cells specifically. So one thing that's interesting though is this virus knows how to recognize only your muscle cells and go and attack those. So then what happened essentially is scientists figured out ways to like, let's hollow out all the bad like shit in this virus and put in like actual useful genetic material. But we'll keep the same like we'll keep the same components of the virus that know how to recognize muscle cells. So they inject me with this virus, and then the virus is going toward the cells and it attaches itself. But instead of injecting negative viral load, it's injecting in the missing genetic material that my body needs to generate this protein. And it's right now that what it injected in, and it's still kind of, I think, at this point, I think it's probably the virus is fully spread through my body and injected all the muscle cells. Unfortunately, they haven't figured out a way that this is like a human version of the genetic material I'm missing, like a synthetic version. So it doesn't fully mimic what I'm missing. So like I'm making kind of like a partial like version.
Wait, like your body is like rejecting it, like because it's synthetic, or it's just like 50% effective? Like what do you
Yeah,
mean?
like it's not as effective as like what, like if I had it naturally, that would be better. So this is like this is mostly because they're only able to fit a certain, they're like these viral particles are not very big, so they can't actually fit all the genetic material I need. So there's like an optimization problem essentially where like they fit in the most important components of the genetic
Gotcha.
material, but not all of it. So like it helps me make kind of like they call it like a mini dystrophin, like a partial version of that. So yeah, so that was pretty wild, and like the whole thing, the whole process of engineering that and putting it in a vial made that vial that I got infused with. That vial was like $3 million for one vial, and being in the U.S., like insurance, your medical insurance pays for that. but it's $3 million, and that's how much these gene therapies cost. Like,
You got a $3 million treatment
yeah, like
covered
one,
by insurance.
yeah, paid by United Healthcare of all the insurance.
What?
That's yeah, that's how crazy sophisticated these treatments are. And it's totally wild. And like in the US, like yeah, like you have to fight with your insurance company, but like that's why these gene therapies have started in the US, because they're so crazy expensive. I mean, unless you're a billionaire and you go to like Prospera and like pay for it out of your pocket, like Brian Johnson, but they're so crazy expensive that you need a medical insurance to be able to like like ever possibly.
Wow.
Um,
So like I guess you mentioned it being $3 million. Like, is this I was also wondering like do you think it's feasible for other people with DMD to receive gene therapy, or like did you have to like go through a special application process, or just
Yeah,
like
so I think right now, if you're in the United States, your most insurances should cover this. So yeah, if you're watching this like right now, DMD, or you know someone with DMD, or you're thinking about gene therapy for DMD, yeah, it's definitely something feasible if you're living in the US. Unfortunately, out of the US, it's still difficult. I think it'll take time before these treatments become cheaper, and like other health insurance. I'm not fully sure. I'm not fully sure how the like health insurances work like outside of the US, but in the US, definitely something to look into and talk to your insurance company. They can, if it'll get approved. And then also, yeah, talk to your doc. Like every doctor that's familiar with Duchenne will know about this treatment. And there's risk with it, because even though that virus that you're getting injected with is all the bad stuff is hollowed out, what happens is your immune system still recognizes it as a foreign entity. Your immune system doesn't know like this is good stuff. Your immune system's like, oh my God, like I'm getting injected with a ton of virus. Like, what do I do? I'm freaking out. So what happens is your immune system mounts this crazy response, and your immune system basically starts like destroying your own body, which is like it's a chance. There's a chance of your immune system destroying your own body. So I had to go on this massive like high dose of, like, long story short, a drug that kind of causes my immune system to be suppressed, and like not freak out over this like foreign entity. But for some people's bodies, like there have been people who've died receiving this treatment. So
wow.
I had to go into this treatment knowing like, Yuva, like, dude, there's a chance you could die from this. Not a high chance, and
What was the percentage would
hard
you
to
estimate?
quantify it exactly, but anywhere from like maybe it was probably like maybe 5 to 10% chance of something serious like that, like something going wrong with your
Pretty
heart.
high.
Yeah, so it was pretty big decision, and a lot of things I had to contend with. But I don't know. I kind of just also have this attitude where like I have this like trust, and I was like, dude, just like go for it. Everything's gonna work out. And I mean, in retrospect, like like everything's worked out, but it was definitely hard to make that decision, because things could have gone wrong. And since then, I've been getting like weekly blood work done to check things, and like also that medication that I took that kind of suppressed my immune system a bit. That had all kinds of side effects. It made me gain weight. It made me have like mood swings, and like I've been dealing with all this recently while like going to my Penn classes. Like it's been a lot to like manage and juggle, but now I've kind of come off that medication, and the gene therapy like fully by now has taken its effect in me. I'm not gonna like all of a sudden gain more strength, but it's a long-term thing. So we'll see over like the next 5, 10 years, like how my body does. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is a booming, massive space. Duchenne is just like one of the areas where gene therapy is applicable, but eventually like this is going to be used for like human enhancement, and changing like the outcome of so many things, and pretty much biology as we know it.
Yeah, and then you mentioned like the gene therapy. Like, do we have to, I guess, get more doses like every few years, like a vaccine, or is this just like a one-time thing, and then we just gotta check up on your health like every week and do the blood work?
Yeah, so the thing about the gene therapy is like it is a one-time thing for all your cells, but the thing is over time, like right, like after like around like 7 years or so, like all the cells in your body turn over. Like there's new cells that come.
Yeah.
So it depends on like the cells, right? Like if it's like if it's something to do with your brain, like certain neurons, like those aren't turning over, those stay. throughout your life, but muscle cells do have turnover. So right now, like we haven't actually, science hasn't figured out a way to redose this, because as soon as you get dosed with this, your body develops antibodies to that virus, the virus that they use, and those antibodies won't let you, like, just if I try to get dosed with this again, since I have antibodies, my immune system will just attack it and destroy it and won't even let it enter my body. But so we're working on the, not where, let's say where,
Right,
but
so like your body has the antibodies now, but they're not targeting the current cells because the immune system was sedated before then. But now,
it's
if we were to
so
reintroduce it, it would be bad.
yeah, now if they reintroduced it, like my body actually, my body didn't have antibodies before to this virus, but now that it got injected with this virus, it created antibodies to them. Just like when you get COVID once, like usually if you get the same strand of COVID again, you're not really, the first time the COVID will knock you out, but the second time it won't be that bad because
Yeah.
you developed antibodies. So in this case, like if you develop antibodies, you won't be able to get treated again. So they're working on ways to fix that. But yeah, hopefully in like 7 years from now, either like they figure out how to redose me with this, because if my cells, I have all new cells by then that need it, or at the rate at which we've been making progress right now, in 7 years from now, like this whole gene therapy thing will be like such next level, like things we can't even fathom, that like we won't even be updating this version of treatment. It'll be like version like 10 of this treatment that works way better. So like in 7 years from now, like who knows? But like in my mind, like if I bought myself, and again, like I don't know for sure how the therapy is going to work, but if I bought myself at least 7 years of time, like if I think about the innovation we made in the past 7 years, 7 years from now, I can't
Yeah.
fathom like what we'll have. So I'm very hopeful that um I was very excited. That's why I made the decision. I was like, I'll take the risk and I'll deal with it. But obviously, that's something everyone has to contend with on their own, and you gotta
Mhm.
see how much of a risk taker you are. But yeah, if you have Duchenne, get at least two opinions on this therapy, because there's some doctors that are for it, and then there's some, obviously, because I mentioned the risks, that are going to caution you against it. So I would get one opinion from a doctor that's for it and hear their views, and one from a doctor that's against it, so you can make an informed decision. A lot of my friends, like they'll have one doctor and they just listen to that one doctor, and the doctor will either be like for or against it, and that's how they make their decision. And I think the best way to make a decision is hear both sides of the story. And that's, yeah. So
Gotcha.
definitely interesting. Interesting. Yeah. Cool
And then
stuff.
I was also wondering, like, if you had like $1 billion to like invest into something within, I guess, like DMD research or like medtech or any of that, or like biotech in general, where do you think, I guess you could also inject your own personal bias, but like where would you inject all the money? Like where do you see things as having the greatest like I don't know, like utility from investment?
Yeah, I think right now the main thing we need is, I just explained that viral delivery mechanism we use. We need better delivery mechanisms, because this virus thing, it's like where we hollow out the virus, and it's kind of like a hacky setup. Like our body doesn't, our immune system's not really okay with being injected with this virus. So then we have to find workarounds to that. So we need better like delivery mechanisms, and I would put all the funding into that, because those better delivery mechanisms, they won't just help people with Duchenne. They'll help anyone that needs a gene therapy. And right now, there has been strides in that field. Like some scientists are using like these gold lipid, like essentially these nanoparticles, like that are made. I forget what the reason is that they're made out of gold, but they're like these gold lipid nanoparticles that have been engineered in the lab, where like those can be used as a delivery mechanism. And then there's other people working on viruses that can be used that your body doesn't mount an immune response to. But that's the biggest area right now, because I think like we've made pretty good advancements on creating the synthetic material to go into the virus, but it's the delivery mechanism. So like it seems like a super like esoteric like niche thing within gene therapy. Like why would you
Mhm.
invest $1 billion there? But it's actually really the key to unlocking the next version of these therapies. And yeah, anyone going into like biotech or like big pharma or like anything where you're dealing with like gene therapy or CRISPR and like all this cutting edge stuff, I would recommend just like learning so as much as you can about these delivery particles and mechanisms, because that's where like the big innovation is going to be happening soon.
Yeah, so like the viral delivery system, it's like maybe this is a bad analogy, but it's like the shovels that you sell during a gold rush. Like there's all these different gene therapy like things being developed, and like they're all, I guess, very promising. But in the end, like you need that final delivery system that's reliable and is able to like get it to a mass audience, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Gotcha. Gotcha.